everybody, and welcome to our weekly Brain Balance Live. I'm Jen. I'm a fellow Brain Balance mom. And of course, we are always joined by Heather. She is just an amazing asset and resource for all of us parents trying to get through, each and every day living with our neurotypical and also neurodivergent children. So how are you doing today, Heather?
Doing well. It's supposed to get almost 100 degrees here in a few days, so I'm getting out a little bit before before it hits the triple digits. It's been beautiful. How are you?
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's been warm, but I'm like, I know what's coming. So while we're in the upper 80s, low 90s, I'm making the most of it.
I love
How
that. I
how
love
are
it when we
you?
say that the upper 80s and the low 90s are more
Cool.
comfortable.
Right. Especially with the humidity. Yeah, no, I've been really working on trying to get some outdoors time, which is very, very important to me. I love
Yeah.
exercising outdoors. So yeah, I've been really trying to engage in some self-care. How are
Oh,
you? What's new with
that's so
you?
good. I'm good. We are definitely going through one of those seasons in our family where it's the end of the year. Everything is kind of hitting the fan at the same time. We've got graduations and recitals and all that kind of stuff. And I have started a new job, which we're so excited about, but is also, it's a lot on the schedule. So we're kind of like burning the candle at both ends, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like a lot of people watching here probably
Yes.
today. But yeah, today we're talking about bullying, and this is an extension of a show we did a couple of weeks ago because we talked about teaching kids to respect and honor boundaries, those of themselves and others, what gets in the way, and that kind of thing. And when you don't establish healthy boundaries, it increases the chances of bullying. And there was so much to say on bullying. I'm like, this has to be a separate show. And this also really ties in with the show about peer pressure we did recently. So all of these build on one another, and at the same time, they're standalones. But if you want a direct link to any of the shows we're referencing about boundaries or peer pressure, peer influence, just message us and we can help you out. But yeah, so the thing is, about 20% of kids of all ages say that they've been bullied, and if you're 9 to 12 years old, that number is 50%.
Wow.
And a huge percentage of those, like 41%, believe it's going to happen again. 15% of people report online bullying, and understand that this is with kids not always fully recognizing what bullying is. The numbers might be higher because sometimes they may not define certain things as bullying.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like even cyberbullying, to understand how powerful our words are, how much, when you think about verbal mistreatment, they're not maybe going to be hit, or it's not about always about physical fights, but if you even separate out cyberbullying, that alone is extremely tied to increased depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, actually planning suicide. These things really, really matter. And the best way we can guard our kids is to help them feel a sense of belonging, connectedness. That starts at home. I think we all know that. But look at this. This is a really powerful stat. Youth who feel connected at home and school, or in any organization they're involved in, whether it's an extracurricular organization or a church organization, something like that, have better academic outcomes. It doesn't just improve mental health. I mean, even though mental health would be more important to me if we're having to pick one here, but they're also up to 66% less likely, 66% less likely to experience health risks related to sexual activity, substance abuse, violence, and mental health, even in adulthood. These benefits do not just help them in the here and now. These kids have been followed all the way into adulthood and finding how much better the mental health outcomes are. I think we know that if you just stop and think about it. I mean, well, yeah,
It makes
having a
sense.
connected home, but in today's world with busyness and the digital age and instant gratification, and I know a lot of kids where if there's an extracurricular that exists, they're going to be in it, and it might be better to pare it down, and but at the same time, there's times in life. I mean, Jen and I both know there's times in life where it's just a season and there's a lot going on,
Yeah.
and so all of this is ideal, and we understand that life happens. So no shaming here. We get it. But just understand that when parents provide unconditional love and attunement, and this is important, it's not enough for us to convey, I love you unconditionally. They need to know, I see you. I am present with you. I am tuned in. I am tuned in when you said your day was fine, but you didn't really mean it. I am attuned when you're talking about something that really interests you. I go out of my way to spend quality time with you. We have daily one-on-one conversations. We also have family time. I listen calmly with genuine interest, not with judgment, not yelling, what happened? You tell me. Really approaching it with a sense of curiosity, open-mindedness, and finding your inner peace and being calm and listening and not talking at kids, talking with them, helping them create agency and come up with answers on their own where they can, with them knowing you always have their back. It will help them with anything they need. Kids, this is huge for kids. When schools have anti-bullying campaigns, and I don't mean like a week of anti-bullying, I mean like there are programs in place and they really work on creating a sense of belonging in schools, it decreases bullying by 25%.
Wow.
So we as adults have a huge responsibility here. But I want to, on the next slide, I want to talk about something that we might unintentionally do that hurts the sense of belonging at home, and that is sibling abuse. And this is probably counterintuitive. Sometimes we get so used to thinking something, understanding the difference between common versus normal. It might be common for one sibling to bully another. In your friends' households, the same thing happens. You might see it on TV. Does that mean that's the way it's supposed to be? No. One of the biggest reasons why this happens and sibling abuse goes unchecked is, I think rarely is that going to be intentional, especially for anyone watching this show. I mean, you are all over and above and beyond parents, you know. So it's because I don't know the difference between what is typical to be expected bickering rivalry versus bullying. And so breaking this down, rivalry is reciprocal. It goes both ways. It's not like one is dominant and the other one is submissive. And it's not happening all the time. It's typical to see some jealousy, little tiffs, squabbles. There might be competitive with one another, get their feelings hurt if you're bragging about how well so-and-so did at the swim meet. Well, I won the art of, needing to try to take the spotlight away.
It's so funny how often that happens. You cannot compliment one child in the house without them all being like, well, I did a great thing too.
What? That does not happen. Unwillingness to share. It's mine. There's a whole show we could do about sharing, but the goal of rivalry or the typical squabbles is parental attention. And kids often misperceive that one child is favored over another because they may not understand the difference between fair versus same. My sibling got a guitar, well, and I didn't. Well, they're taking guitar lessons.
Right.
And you got a new baseball bat because you're in baseball. They outgrew their shoes. You did, I did an entire show about it's not fair and how to help give that perspective. That is not always like, that can just look like entitlement and spoiled. There's a whole lot of neurocognitive stuff going on there. And we did an entire show on that also. But it's really important to be cognizant of, it's not just what the truth is, it's how it's being perceived. We can unintentionally compare one child to another. Why can't your brother, applies himself? Why can't you do that? See, if you would apply yourself, there's two different ways we could say the same thing. Why can't you apply yourself like your brother? That might be more obvious that that's not a great idea. But you know what? If you would apply yourself like your brother, you could make the same grades he does. That sounds like I'm showing belief in you. You're just as smart as your brother. No, it's still a comparison. We got to be so careful about not doing that. If someone's like, Mom, Dad, come here. And you're like, I can't. I'm with your sister right now. Again, I'm reporting the weather. That can create resentment because you're choosing sister over me. And you say, I'm busy with something right now. I can't wait to see what you're working on in a couple of minutes when I'm freed up. Just keep brother, sister out of the equation on the response. But we definitely don't want to take sides. You want to be the mediator, the impartial mediator. Now, if they are used to seeing coercive, controlling dynamics at home, this can be how one spouse treats another. Or if they're, exposed to that, even if there are other caregivers in their lives that they have regular contact with, they are going to get models of not what things are supposed to look like in relationships. Lack of supervision, that one's probably obvious, and that one's really hard in today's busy world and a lot of multi-income families and things like that. But if you have one child who is often in charge of the other, and let's say you have a teen in charge of an elementary school kid, that can create resentment, even if they don't show it on the surface at the time, even if they are not conscious of the resentment. And so then they might start abusing that power. And that can be choice. It can also be, I'm really confused about where that boundary is. When mom and dad are away, they put me in charge for these 2 hours. At other times, I'm not in control of this sibling. Or if it's just resentment of, I didn't get to hang out with my friends because I had to watch you,
Yeah.
This is a very individual decision. This is a family decision, but for whatever it's worth, I think in general, it is a really good idea if you can swing it to pay an older sibling for taking care of younger siblings. I think there are a lot of chores. We're learning responsibility. It's part of being a family unit. We all do our part. But when it's things that are above and beyond, that really they're sacrificing something else, well, this is an opportunity for them to earn money and to show their responsibility. That this is something that can really decrease resentment. And it is my opinion, but it's also an educated one, that it's really usually a good idea to pay siblings for watching kids. Do I think you should pay them for making their bed? Not really, but don't play with them then. That's dismissive. That's a really common thing we might say. And we might not even be thinking about what we're saying. We're tired. We're putting laundry in, wash the dishes, getting separated, stressful day at work. Mom, Shane did this. Well, don't play with him then. That sounds like an easy fix. Really, it's dismissive. I don't care what he did to you, even though that's not what you mean.
Yeah. And that would be different, I guess, right? Than like teaching your kid to set healthy boundaries. Okay, if you don't like something he's doing, tell him to stop, tell him you don't like it, use your words to say that, I guess how do you tell the difference between,
Yeah, that's totally different because when we did that entire boundary show, we talked about how to help kids understand what healthy boundaries are, ways that we unintentionally confuse that and make them think that boundaries are supposed to be compromised. For example, you talk to kids about creating boundaries, and then you go to a party and someone is like, Jason, come here, sit by me, Mom, and you already know where they want to sit. Well, you don't want to hurt his feelings, just sit there.
Right.
You're saying your voice doesn't matter. So we've always got to be conveying how much their voice matters and to advocate for themselves. And we've talked about, we're going to get into this a lot later, but aggression versus assertiveness and that kind of thing. That's him. We're dismissing what they're saying. I don't care what he did to you when we say that. We are teaching them how to stand up for themselves. But then there is a time we need to step in also.
Yeah.
And also to say, don't play with him then. We also could be throwing the other one under the bus. He's not worth playing with.
Yeah.
He's a pain. Why are you doing that? I wouldn't want to. I mean, I'm sort of joking, but there's also some truth to that where that could be misconstrued. So whereas bullying is a repeated pattern, it is just ongoing. One is the aggressor, the other is dominated or disempowered. The goal is not parental attention. It's harm, fear, distress, control, or superiority. So, this is a very noteworthy on the bottom here. Prevalence exceeds spousal and child abuse combined. Sibling abuse does. I think it's mostly because parents don't know the difference between rivalry and bullying. I don't think this is talked about enough. It's not the parent's fault. I don't think this is totally intuitive.
Yeah, no, it's really hard to know the difference, especially if you have kids that are like super rambunctious, lots of energy. It is hard to tell the difference between these two. It's a fine line.
It is. And if you have one child who has neurodevelopmental struggles and one who doesn't, it's so hard because we talk about, you don't want to punish something that kids can't help. That does not mean what they're doing to the other one is okay.
Right.
And so teaching boundaries and self-advocacy and being present and attuned for the one who's getting mistreated, but also understanding that discipline is not the same as punishment. The point of that is to teach and to instruct and to help them understand your emotions are valid. It's what we do with them that matters. And working with them on those kinds of things. And depending on the age of the kids, the level at which you talk about some of these things with the other sibling, without putting the burden on them about this. So I'm trying to, this is really tough because all of these are completely very thorough topics on their own. And this is one in a series of things we've been doing. And so it's like every single show, I feel like I'm brushing over something, but it's because there's another show just on that topic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Another really important conversation to have with kids is for them to understand that in a bullying scenario, there are three roles that are happening. There is the one being bullied, there is the one doing the bullying, and often there is a bystander. A bystander is the onlooker who does nothing. So, and we'll get into this a little bit more in a second, but talking to your kids about being an upstander instead of a bystander. Kids need to know that when you look on without taking action, they're complicit. It often unknowingly encourages the bullier, even said it, and we want to be sure that we're talking about the person doing the bullying and not calling them a bully, putting a fixed label on them. And I'll talk about why in a moment. But your kids may not know that if I stand by and do nothing, I am equally responsible for this. There are reasons why kids stand by. The number one reason why kids don't do anything, not because they don't care. A lot of them feel really guilty about it, in fact, but there's fear. They are afraid they'll be the next target. They don't want the stigma of being a tattletale. It's very important to help kids understand the difference between tattling. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this to get somebody else in trouble? Am I jealous of them, resentful of them? Was harm really the intent here? Or am I doing this because I'm standing up for what's right? And this is a thing about boundaries. That is a pretty abstract concept that requires a lot of cognitive flexibility. Very important for kids to know the difference between what's tattling and what is being an upstander, standing up and doing the right thing. Very, very important. Role-playing scenarios, giving hypotheticals and saying, what would you do here? Would that, if I did this, would that be tattling or would that be being an upstander?
Yeah. They have see something, say something for a reason, I guess, right?
Yes. I mean, handling that, they're doing it for, they got to know the reason why. The why underneath all this matters. Another fear reason is they're afraid they're going to handle it poorly. They might make matters worse. Or I'm afraid because I don't know what to do. I have this uncertainty and then I get frozen in the uncertainty. Mm-hmm. If you have kids who have trouble even starting homework sometimes because they don't know where to start, and so then they don't do anything, can definitely be another area where this takes over. They need to know that groupthink often decreases empathy and values aligned action. Empathy enhances positive action. But when you're hanging out in a group, it is so much easier to go with what the crowd is saying and convincing yourself that what they're saying is okay because you want to fit in. Is the choice I'm making aligned with my values? Is it moving me closer to being the best version of myself? Do I have a weird feeling in my gut about what I'm agreeing with here? I mean, we talked a lot about this on the peer pressure, peer influence show, but groupthink is so powerful. It's scary. Modeling pro-social behavior can decrease bullying. Being inclusive, demonstrating kindness, respect, courage, being the voice who stands out in the crowd, and trust caring adults to help navigate bullying scenarios. Make sure they knew who trusted adults are. Talk about this in advance. You may think, well, of course they know. They can talk to us. Of course, they have a really good relationship with Coach Jones. They would talk to him. They would talk to Mrs. Landry. Would they?
If they don't know, I guess they wouldn't.
If they don't know. It is really important to have a plan of action about what are some things you can do in this scenario. I can try to break the tension even with humor, but not laughing at what's happening. I can just stand up and say what I think. I can just go through all different kinds of scenarios and where they have a whole plate full of things that they know they can do. And what are they going to do in the moment? What are they going to do as soon as they've helped hopefully try to stop that scenario? And what are they going to do after? What are some other ways that you can prevent it in the first place? Are inviting the new student to eat with you at lunch. Just if they're talking about a hobby and somebody starts making fun of them, that sounds really cool. Tell me more about that. Reaching out to them after and check in how they're feeling. There's things they can do afterwards also. But these things, they may sound obvious to adults. They are not always obvious to kids with or without neurodevelopmental struggles. And that, of course, we're sitting at, well, yeah, of course, do the right thing. It's not always that easy. Just do the right thing. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so some more conversations with kids. They need to know, why does bullying happen? The top reasons are to fit in. This goes very much with the peer pressure show. As a defense mechanism, I'm going to jump in on this because if I don't, better them than me, and they can even feel bad for saying that. But also, if they have been bullied, mistreated, I mean, there's probably some human nature to feeling relieved that in that moment it's not them. Social status. Sometimes it's such an important ongoing conversation to have with kids that we will never truly feel better about ourselves by putting others down. We know that, but that's not always evident. Talking about what all bullying looks like, it is not always so obvious. It can be gossip, starting a rumor. It is not just laughing and pointing and overtly excluding someone. Low self-esteem. We've done self-esteem shows and why self-esteem can be tough for any of us across the age span, with or without neurodevelopmental struggles. There are extra reasons why this can be difficult with neurodevelopmental struggles. I'm not even in touch with who I am. Self-awareness, being able to think about my thinking. I have sensory issues. I'm not even in touch with my body. How do I get in touch with what makes me worthy? I have awkward social skills, so I feel bad about myself. And I don't know how to stand up and do the right thing. I'm afraid people are going to laugh at me because I'm going to sound awkward when I do it, etc. They need to know why. When we know why things are happening, it really provides a framework for everything. I won't even talk about some of this because we jumped into it earlier. We got to talk to them about honoring boundaries, advocacy. Your voice matters. Everyone's voice matters. And what are some ways you can help them start identifying problems and how they can stand up for themselves? By the way, advocacy is one of the most important skills neurodiverse kids need in college and in jobs. That we all need, but one that is often a big struggle. There's not an more important skill than advocacy. So help kids figure out what is the problem. I don't understand it when teachers do this. If they will list the steps for me, help them come up with what some problems are in various classes, what are some potential solutions, and how can you go approach them with this? You've got to start practicing this years before they leave the nest. True friendship. What is a poser friend versus a true friend? We do not want to tell our kids who to be friends with if we can at all help it. Yeah. Because unfortunately, that is going to make them want to be friends with that person more. It's not fair. That stinks. I know it. But if we help them come to the better conclusion on their own, we help guide them in that direction. They are going to feel heard. They're going to feel empowered. They are growing their agency and responsibility and decision making. And they don't feel like you're telling them what to do. Seeking independence and agency. We want kids to want that. And it's about steering it in the right direction. Don't tell them that certain kids can't come over. That gives you you can be a fly on the wall. Keep an eye on things. How are they being treated? Ask questions about what do you enjoy about, what do y'all do together? What do you talk about? Without it feeling nosy, you can ask open-ended questions. Get to know the parents. We've done shows about this also. There are things you can do, but even hypothetical scenarios or reading books and talking through, do you think this was a true friend? Why or why not? I'm not defensive about that because we're talking about characters in a book. You're not imposing on my friendships, but you get their thinking going and they can then apply it to their friendships. Teasing versus taunting. Teasing is reciprocal. It is in good fun. It is not to tear anybody down, and it ceases when it stops being funny. Taunting is relentless. It may even escalate when you ask to stop, and the point is to tear somebody down. This may not be obvious to people. Why can you and dad say that to each other, but then I can't say it to Jessica at school. Well, it's different because, all those scenarios, mixed feelings. This is a big one. So many times kids stay friends with someone because they have some common interest, because they do have a good time a lot of the time together. But they also, half the time, come home feeling worse about themselves because the person started being mean to them. It's so normalize that. Let kids know that it is okay. It is understandable. It makes sense to want to hang out with a friend that you can have so much fun with, where you have so much in common with. And also to be sad or conflicted about the way they treat you. How do you feel? How did you feel today when you came home from playing with them? And helping them think about opportunity cost. Is it worth it? Does the good exceed the bad? None of us is perfect. We're not looking for perfection. But helping them understand where they don't feel like, what is wrong with me? Why would I want to be friends with her when she treats me like that? It makes sense because we have some things in common, and there are times that are really good. This is an important conversation for romantic relationships, dating, for teenagers as well. The reason it's so important to say the one doing the bullying instead of the bully is because what we've talked so many times about not unintentionally shaming our kids, not putting negative character labels on them. You're so lazy, you're defiant, you're difficult, you're the problem child. No. Even if somebody is mistreating your child or your teen, when we call them the bully, that erases some of the good we're trying to do by not labeling our own kids. We are saying that person is a bully. That is who they are. It is not going to change. And so, okay, so they can't change. So maybe that was all a bunch of hooey when you're acting like I can, that I can grow. We're trying to get a growth mindset going. Separate the action from the person so that they understand also, when I make a bad choice, that does not make me a bad person. This person engaged in bullying. It does not mean they are a bully. This person told a lie. We do not call them a liar. It is not the same thing. We are not defined by one choice, one action. And there is amazing research on this, that when we separate the act from the person doing the bullying decreases the behavior because we're helping instill in them a growth mindset. I can grow and become better, like we all can. But the retaliation against the person doing the bullying decreases also, because students do not see them as the bad guy, the bully. They made this choice. They did something that wasn't good. That doesn't mean they're bad.
Yeah.
It is very powerful. It's also very important to talk to kids about how fluid the roles and behaviors involved in bullying are. When someone is bullied, they are more likely to engage in bullying behavior. Oh, I would never do that. What is getting normalized for them? If they have issues with social skills, maybe they don't even know how to delineate the taunting from the teasing. The common versus normal thing. And some of it can be that the hostility really is growing. And I'm not going to, they take it too far. They might have all or nothing thinking. I was being a doormat. Now I'm going to be the one who they need a doormat for, and finding the shades and degrees in there. There are many reasons this happens. It's so important to make kids aware of this and cut it off at the pass. And the difference between being assertive versus aggressive is when I am assertive, I am standing up for myself, standing firm, letting my voice be heard and what my needs are. I notice, I feel, I see this happening. I prefer this. Would you, will you please, da, da, da. A lot of I statements where you're not blaming the person. You're standing up for yourself without trampling on their rights. Was I British for a minute?
Trampling. So you're not trampling on their rights. Yeah, a little bit. I loved it.
I mean, how cool would that be if I could have that beautiful accent, which I don't. But yeah, you can see here, if it's all about my needs, that's aggression. If it's all about your needs, that's passive. That's being a doormat. Assertive is in the middle. This is another thing that is so, so difficult for so many kids with cognitive inflexibility. You see things very black and white. I'm right, you're wrong. It's this way or it's this way. Now, there's a whole lot in between also. Okay, let's move on. So it is human nature to, y'all are gonna think, yeah, what, you're crazy, Heather, really? So we're just going to not let put downs get to us? Yes, they're going to, because we're human beings. But how do we unhook where it doesn't take up too much space in the brain? This is so valuable to teach our kids. Here are some steps to talk to them about. Give yourself 30 minutes to stew. You can be as mad as you want. You can, whatever. Have them write it down. Writing it down is powerful because it's a sensory motor experience. It is stream of consciousness. It is helping them a lot of times when they're trying to tell you what happened or express their feelings. And they can't get it out. But when they write, they can. It is such a release. And then there is a mental imagery is so powerful. When you write those things down, and you can even take a picture if you want to talk about it later, having them tear it up, crinkle it up, throw it, that you're getting a physical release of those emotions. The body-brain connection are undeniable. You can also have them put whether it's anxiety, uncertainty, any sort of distressing emotion, have them place or unhealthy ways of thinking, picture placing those on leaves and having them float down a stream or blowing bubbles, and each bubble has that thing just washing away. It's gone. Doing something physical like that. There are many neurochemical reasons why this is so powerful. But if we just say, we're going to feel how we're going to feel. But if we try to deny that or subdue it, it's going to be worse. Let yourself stew. Here's the other thing. When we let ourselves be mad or frustrated or something for a certain time, we don't feel deprived of it and we don't need it as much. All right. Replace angry thoughts with a calming statement. Have kids come up with some calming statements ahead of time before things happen. And I think it's best to do something that sounds like it's their words. You can kind of brainstorm with them, but because this is self-talk, as they're saying it to themselves, they need to feel like it's themselves talking to themselves,
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to keep my power, and no one has the power to make me feel bad about myself, whatever. Have them practice some calming statements, and they might try one and then try a different one another time, and what helped them the most. But when we replace one thought with it, as soon as an angry thought enters, those thoughts are going to enter. 95% of our thoughts are automatic, but train them to replace it with their calming statement. What happens over time by doing that is that becomes the go-to. Those knee-jerk thoughts start diminishing.
I love
that. That changed my life with some negative rates of thinking I had based on some trauma decades ago.
Yeah.
And I did it decades ago, right after it happened, and it changed my life. It felt tedious at first. It almost feels miraculous how much it changed the way my brain is wired. But do something to chill out. Have them think of those things in advance. Exercise, going for a walk, spending time in nature, playing music. And that could be listening to music, dancing. If they're playing,
I was going to say speaking in a different accent for a little while.
Yes. Pretending to be British, trumpling. Telling jokes is such a good stress release. What are the things for them? Or painting or drawing? What is it? Do something constructive. Helping others turns angry energy into something useful. Anger is full of energy. It's the tip of passion. We did an anger show. It's the tip of passion. It is there for a reason. What is it I care about that I feel is being threatened or challenged? There's so much self-awareness that can grow here. And what is something positive I can do with this? What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Confidentially talk to a trusted adult who will listen to and support you. And that means we need to listen and support, not just talk at them, but ask questions, listen. Don't provide answers. Be Mr. Miss Fix It. And until it's time, if and when it's time for that. Maybe the talk I want to have is a confidential talk with the person who made the unkind comment to me. I think that would depend on a lot of factors. What is the relationship? Is it safe? All kinds of things that you want to talk through with your kids. Repeat offender, or is this okay, this friendship really is not in my best interest, or maybe it is, and maybe it's something we can work through. Talk through those scenarios. Um, something that's really good for a lot of kids, anything that makes this concrete. My inner peace shield, this is just an example, looks like this. Have them draw it. If you have kids who are into superheroes, have them, or coloring page, and have them draw what they're, this is just an example, but using art or anything to get a visual representation of this, the armor they have on them, where these things can only affect them to a certain extent. We're not robots. It doesn't mean it's not going to impact us. Normalizing that, but also that we are in charge, helping them understand there are things I can control and things I can't control. I can't control what people say or do or think or feel, or I can control how I respond. I can control my thoughts, that kind of thing. But two assertive responses I can use are having these at the ready is so useful, because if you are in this state of anxiety or anger, we've talked about how the guard dog of the brain hijacks information. It doesn't make it to the prefrontal cortex where you can reason through and problem solve and sometimes get the words out that you want to say. Okay. And finally, here are some really good resources for bullying. Stompoutbullying.org, stopbullying.gov, pacer.org/bullying. I've mentioned this book series a few times on the show at various times. Weird, Dare, and Tough is my favorite story of bullying, because it is 3 separate books telling the exact same story, except that weird is told from the perspective of the one being bullied, dare is told from the perspective of the bystander, and tough is told from the perspective of the person doing the bullying. I have had so many families say that completely changed the narrative in our house and empowered our kids on a level, gave them hope. There are activities the books themselves are fantastic. The pictures are fantastic. There are also activities in each one that are very powerful for getting your kids prepared to identify, prevent, and respond to bullying. Bullying as a pain in the brain is another really good one, that instead of a story, it's more like what is bullying, but it's really cute in the way it's told in kids' terms. Middle School Confidential series, one of the best ways we can shield our kids is to build up their self-confidence and their connectedness. The firmer I am in my self-confidence, my self-worth, the less other people's words have the power to destroy me. And those books are fantastic. Both the Middle School Confidential and the Stick Up for Yourself. And then, of course, the 3 centers of my page also included there.
Yes, please, please, please take those down, and you'll definitely want to get in touch with Heather, either through her Hidden Turn page or through one of these centers. You guys are so lucky if you are in Texas and hearing this right now, because she is right near you. Did we have one more page at the end that has the phone numbers and things?
No, okay. You can Google Brain Balance of the Woodlands, Katie, or Mansfield. Also, the email addresses of the centers are very easy, because it's the name of the center, the Woodlands at brainbalance.com, Katie at brainbalance.com, or Mansfield at brainbalance.com. Or you can message us on the pages.
Okay, awesome. Yes, Heather minds those DMs very, very closely to make sure she answers all of your questions. So thank you so much. Do you have anything else going on this week you want to tell everybody about?
I don't. Dr. Brian and I will be back next week. We had to take a little hiatus on the Thursday show, but that is supposed to restart a week from Thursday. But I do want to say that I send out a weekly newsletter that is full of research-backed information, tips, how to help. There are different topics each week about how to handle oppositional behavior, how to improve attention, learning struggles, reading, emotional regulation. There are different topics all the time with several different sections to the newsletter, all kinds of resources in there for you. And if you're interested in that, you can look at the center pages, look for Jen's gorgeous face and where she's talking about the newsletter. And there's a button you can click, like sign up for the newsletter, and you just get your email address in there and you're on the list that's going out every Saturday.
I absolutely love it. It's got it's kind of just gives you enough each week to just kind of add to, because it's not something, these are changes that are difficult to make sometimes, because sometimes it's counterintuitive to how we were raised, or, just different ways of thinking that kind of turn everything on its head. And you give us little bits each week that help us get through. I'm just so grateful.
there's been a really strong response to those, and it's we're not going to blow up your emails once a week on a Saturday. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. That's a really good thing to check out.
Yeah,
So
definitely sign up for that. And we will be back next week. Same time, same place. I'll see you then, Heather.
thanks, Jen. Thanks, everyone. Have a great